Passion public service announcement. Passionate. Let me tell you something.
So what is this Passion PSA podcast? Who am I? Well, they call me Passion, short for passion no last necessary. Why is there no last name necessary? Because the first name says it all. I am passion and all that embodies. What do I do here? I give you the life coaching that you know you need, but don't enroll yourself in. When did I start? Actually, 2017. I'd leave a PSA on my Instagram regarding something I'd observed, and now we've evolved to this. Why do I do it? Why not? If even one person is able to take away one thing that changes their life, someone else's life, or changes the world for the better, then I've done what I was charged to do. So come on in, sit and listen for a while. There's something here for everyone at the Passion PSA podcast.
Greetings and salutations, my beloved passionates, newcomers, visitors, and guests. Welcome to another episode of the Passion PSA podcast, where I, Passion No Last Necessary, the Get You Right Guru, issue a weekly public service announcement about whatever I've observed or was on my mind. Okay? This is a for your consideration zone where the objective is to offer you a perspective you may not have considered to both expand your thinking and become a better version of yourself, for yourself and for others. This is a safe space, but not necessarily a delicate one. I will never rob you of your right to feel what you feel. Same way I won't sugarcoat the truth to make it more palatable. The goal is to get you to higher, more expanded thinking so you can operate as your highest and best self. It is also to give you a hand in your self-work, your shadow work. The objective is to go further than looking at the next person in condemnation and judgment. Look at yourself. Look at what you've done. Look at what you're currently doing. After our talk, ask yourself if your current behavior is how you want to conduct yourself going forward. And if it is, that's fine. But if it's not, take some time and make some intentional changes. And know that you making changes for the better is neither going to always be received as you expected, nor is it going to always be met by the people around you immediately changing their behavior for the better. You may never get to see their changes, and that's not your concern. Your job is to model the behavior so they have something to model themselves after. So, if you're new here, we start each episode with affirmations to ensure that regardless of what we discuss and how it may make you feel, we have intentionally started on the highest possible vibration. So let's shift the energy upward because I'm sleepy, okay? You are always welcome to repeat after me or to use this time to state your own affirmations. I am present in the now. I am grateful for now. The past is behind me. I am grateful for this opportunity. I accept the things I cannot change. I release the disappointments of the past. I release the bad decisions of the past. I celebrate the good decisions. I am grateful for my growth thus far. I am grateful that I continue to grow daily. I recognize that growth is inclusive of and built upon the little changes and not just the major leaps and bounds. I seize every opportunity to make better decisions. I learn from every decision. I'm grateful to walk in the wisdom of what I've already learned. I look forward to the wisdom to come. Ashe, ashe, ashe. How you feeling today, passionates? How have you been since we were last together? My prayer is that you were well, that you were grateful, and that you were healing. And when I say healing, that is twofold. First, I mean that any unwellness in you was repaired, and also that you were a balm or a salve or a bastion of comfort, a ray of light to someone else. Let's not only pray to be great, but to be great to others, because whether you realize it or not, there is healing in healing others. It is a blessing to be a blessing and a gift to be a gift. So don't take that for granted, even if others around you do. And remember not to curse them, even when they take ravenously. Remember what we've discussed. Either we're setting new parameters or we're making clear why we're removing ourselves and then removing ourselves. And if you're questioning why you need to tell someone why you're removing yourself, consider not only how base it is, but how counterintuitive it is just to cut someone off knowing they may come around later asking you why. If you let them know up front, there's no reason for them to double back in perplexity. There's no need to make them feel it, because the truth be told, if they really don't care about your feelings, the only one who's going to feel it is you. And even if they do regret it, or they do grieve losing you or losing access to you, you don't get to determine to what depth they should experience it, because you want to know that they're hurting as bad as you are. We'll talk about that in another episode. But today, I just wanted to plant some good seeds in your fertile ground. I want to talk today about shoulda, woulda, and coulda. Because the conversation comes up so often about what we could have, we should have, or we would have done differently. And before I go further, now that I'm thinking about it, Fashions, let me tell you something. Of is a preposition and have is a verb, okay? Oxford Languages, which is the source from which Google search collects definitions, defines of as expressing the relationship between a part and a whole. It's also expressing the relationship between a scale or measure and a value. So when you use the contractions should've, would've, and or could've to write out or even think of, as opposed to have, is absolutely, indubitably, and unforgivably incorrect. Now, I'm going to spare you the full-scale English lesson today. But just know that if y'all keep on insisting on writing this ragliness in these streets, I'm going to be doing an episode on this, okay? Consider yourself advised. It is easy to look back at what we would have done differently if we had to do it over. There's enjoyment in the fantasy of thinking how much better something would have turned out if we could make some slight alterations, but it is indeed fantasy. And I want to really turn that over with you. And that's not because I'm so versed in mathematical theory, right? But because I think that this will really help all of us to become more at peace with even the worst decisions we feel we've made, and also help us spend less time looking behind us and spend more time on and in the now. So first, let's talk about the butterfly effect. According to Merriam-Webster, the butterfly effect is a property of chaotic systems, such as the atmosphere, by which small changes in initial conditions can lead to large-scale and unpredictable variation in the future state of the system. Okay, what does that mean and where does it come from? I found an article. I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes version. The article is on technologyreview.com. If you want to research the article, feel free and you can read the whole post. But here are the snippets that I took from it, okay? An MIT professor, Edward Lorenz, entered some numbers into a computer program simulating weather patterns and then left his office to get a cup of coffee while the machine ran. When he returned, he noticed a result that would change the course of science. The computer model was based on 12 variables representing things like temperature and wind speed, whose values could be depicted on graphs as lines rising and falling over time. On this day, Lorenz was repeating a simulation he'd run earlier, but he had rounded off one variable from 0.506127 to 0.506. To his surprise, that tiny alteration drastically transformed the whole pattern his program produced over 2 months of simulated weather. The unexpected result led Lorenz to a powerful insight about the way nature works. Small changes can have large consequences. The idea came to be known as the butterfly effect, after Lorenz suggested that the flap of a butterfly's wings might ultimately cause a tornado. And the butterfly effect, also known as sensitive dependence on initial conditions, has a profound corollary. Forecasting the future can be nearly impossible. His insight turned into the founding principle of chaos theory. Determinism was equated with predictability long before Lorenz. After Lorenz, we came to see that determinism might give you short-term predictability, but in the long run, things could be unpredictable. Now, if something as slight as the flutter of a butterfly's wings could theoretically cause a tornado, what do you think would happen if you changed just one little thing to get the results that you desire? There is a severe disconnect in the minds of most people that causes the inaccurate thinking or belief that we're not all interconnected, when it is the polar opposite. We are all interconnected. And even though we may not be accurate actively sharing in an experience or intentionally engaging in the experience, it does not mean that we're not all participants in the experience. Let's think about an occurrence that everyone knows of. Depending on how old you are, you remember 9/11. You remember where you were when it happened. You remember how you felt watching it. You didn't have to be in New York. You didn't have to be from New York. Now, of course, the resident New Yorker experience was radically different from someone who lives outside of New York, specifically outside of New York City, and let's say on the West Coast. But even someone on the other side of the US felt that impact. And if they didn't, someone they had to deal with did. Whatever experience that caused for them directly impacted their behavior with anyone they encountered. That experience then directly impacted the next person who had nothing to do with it. It was inactive, it was indirect, but everyone was impacted. And while you may say, Passion, that was a global event, of course everyone was impacted. Let's bring it down to something as local as the person doing some terrible driving in front of you. Because if you like me, you got road and sidewalk rage. But anyway, their driving is impacting you. You get bent out of shape. Your phone rings. You answer the phone in a huff because of that driver. Now you've impacted the person on the other end of the phone. They called you so that you could talk them off the ledge. Now they're further incensed. They're also in the store. Now they're rude to the person in the aisle who may now be out of pocket with someone they deal with, and they're rude to the person ringing up their purchase. But all of this started with one driver doing bad driving. At least 4 people are impacted by this one action, but only one person was actually present for it. You get it? That's the ripple effect. So now if you could travel back in time to that one thing, that one decision that you feel changed your life in a major way, and you make that one change, you don't only change the course of events in your life, you change the course of events of the world. And that's not limited to good or bad. That's all inclusive. That person you dated that hurt you to your core, that you wish you'd never met, it's very possible if you never met them, you wouldn't have met someone that's in your life right now that you love and adore. Some of y'all wouldn't have the kids you wouldn't trade for the world had you never related with their other parent that you wish you'd never met. But if we take me as a real-time example, I was in a relationship that was all the way good until it was all the way bad. That breakup, it wasn't quick. It wasn't easy. In fact, the whole experience was a nightmare that took almost a year to wake up from, okay? So now let's change just one thing. We don't break up. If we don't break up, I don't leave that job. I don't leave that job. I don't start this other job. I don't work at the new job. I don't get downsized from there. No being laid off from this job means no time to sit at home and write. No writing means no spoken word artistry. No spoken word, no album, no first album, no second album, no second album. No suggestion that I do a podcast. No suggestion in 2014 means you and I aren't here in this discourse in 2022. So if I go back to 2008 and change that one thing, the few things that I listed here don't happen. The thousands of other things that I didn't list don't happen. And other people's lives are changed as well. Now, it doesn't sound too big until you realize that there is direct impact to the lives of others. For example, I said that breakup catalyzed me leaving one job and taking another. Well, me going to that job at that time is how 4 other individuals got promoted at 2 different companies. So if these promotions are predicated on my arrival, if me and Boy never go our separate ways, what happens to them? Do they get promoted? Do they quit because they feel undervalued? We don't know. What we do know is there is a direct correlation. And while someone getting a promotion at some random retail job may seem insignificant to you, if that promotion funded one of them finishing fashion school and those designs inspired you to start a boutique business that's now netting 6 figures monthly, but all of that is predicated on me getting that job, which is predicated on this breakup, while you might not be rooting for me to be brokenhearted in all truth, you're probably not cheering for us to stay together. And that's just it. The one thing changes everything, good and bad. And now how's this for a plot twist? You change the one thing because you believe it'll change everything for the better, and it makes it even worse. How many alterations are you planning on making to get it just right? That rabbit hole has the potential to take you so deep into depression and despair. You could end up believing the only thing that'll make everything right is if you weren't born or if you weren't living now. And the answer is C. None of the above. Your life had value then. Your life has value now. Every tear is worth something. Every decision, good or bad, has its place. I look back and shake my head sadly on a lot of days, but those bad decisions and bad memories have all served to make me very compassionate to other people's go through. There isn't too much that you can tell me that'll shock me because I either did it, I was there with the person who did, or I was the one they called after. These experiences have shaped my personality. They're all contributors to the constant evolution of my character. So if I'm the sum total of all these experiences, who would I be if my experiences were different? Would I be dry and uninteresting? Would I be compassionate? Would I be pursuing my dreams and the desires of my heart? Would I have peaked much sooner and burnt out? I could ask 1,000 questions about how I would be different. But what about the rest of the world? Somebody's been encouraged by what I have to offer. I didn't benefit from their encouragement because I didn't even know about it. Someone else benefited though and contributed greatly to someone else as a result. And passionates, as much as we don't want to talk about it, this includes losing loved ones. There are some people for whom we trade our lives to save theirs. Living without them just seems like a slow free fall through time with no end. And it can be physically sickening, and you're waiting on time to heal the wound, but realizing that's a lie of the most egregious and unrighteous proportions. But what if you could go back and save them on Wednesday and then they transition the following Thursday? The only thing that changes in the moment is you get a little more time with them. If they were ill, does it make them better? Probably not. If they were suffering, does it ease their suffering? Probably not. What if getting that extra week, instead of it making you feel better, it made you more bitter? Who wins then? And I know somebody thinks I don't get it, and that's cool too. I could be wrong, but I'm not. No matter what change you think you could make, you probably wouldn't get the results you think you would have ultimately preferred. Think about it like this. How many times have you gone back to something and regretted it? How many jobs did you return to and immediately thought, this is why I left in the first place? How many of you would never move back home for a long stay because going back home would be like living your teen years all over again, and once was too much? How many of you tried to be cordial with an ex and all it did was make you question your own intelligence as to why you were ever with that person in the first place? Going back and doing it over, fixing it, changing it, it's really not all you're fantasizing it to be. In my personal experience, ultimately, I'm glad that relationship ended. It was stifling me. I wasn't growing. I was actually shrinking, but I wasn't aware of it at the time. Did I enjoy that breakup period? Hard no. I was broken down on every level, but we know we sometimes have to be broken down to be put back together properly. Now, I could have done without the misery and the sleepless nights and the weight loss and the noise in my head. I could have done without all of that. But without all of that, there are so many things I would have had to do without because those things were learned in that meantime. A lot of us wishing we could go back and change something in the past. Wish that because we're dissatisfied with the present. It goes back to the escapism that we talked about in the other episode. But how about we focus on changing what we can change? Let's change our vocabulary. Let's change our habits, change our thoughts, change our intentions. Not for the future, because future you might look back at present you in disgust and wish they could go back and make your mind change before now. Let's make these changes for the now. Let's make the most of the now, because that's all we got. And for a lot of us, that's more than we can handle. The other thing that many of us wish we could go back and change is the preparation. We weren't ready for something, and we feel like things would have been different if we had been better prepared. But can I let you in on another plot twist? Some of the worst unpreparedness is exactly what we need to catapult us into action. There are a whole lot of us that would never move with urgency unless and until our backs are against the wall. Now, is that good practice? Very often, absolutely not. But I'd hazard to say it's the majority of our stories. Now, on the other hand, you can do all the practicing and preparing in the world and still be totally unprepared for what comes your way, because there are some things you just can't prepare for. I know countless women who say that about their pregnancies, that one pregnancy was drastically different from the other, or their second child is wildly different from the first. Death and funerals are also on that list of preparation. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many deaths, how many funerals. There's always that one person in that one situation. Point is, more than one more day, one more hour, never meeting this person, having said X when you met that person. The most important change you can make is changing your behavior and your thinking. Yesterday is gone. 10 seconds ago is gone. Let it stay there. Let's spend more time on right now. Let now change tomorrow. Let's gather the lessons from what can't be changed and realize that even the worst parts of yesterday contribute to the best parts of today. You can't go forward looking backwards. Eventually you'll crash. There was another point that I wanted to go over, but it eludes me, so I'll save it for a PSA. I hope today's talk helps someone release the stranglehold they have on could've, would've, and should've. Because while it may be true that if you had done something differently, you may have gotten a different result, there's no guarantee it would have been a better result. And someone else getting an opportunity to change their yesterday could upturn and completely devastate or destroy your life as you know it. So here's a suggestion. Next time someone asks you what you would change if you could go back and change one thing, tell them that you'd stop lamenting what's happened and redirect that energy into extracting the lesson. Comment below. I don't know what happened last week with the comments. I don't know how they got disabled, but that shouldn't be an issue for this week. Your feedback is always welcomed and appreciated. I hope you know that. If you ever find comments disabled or you want to submit a more private listener letter, send an email to my brilliant friend passion@gmail.com. Whether you're viewing or listening on your preferred podcast platform, like, subscribe, turn on your notifications, share. Help me help others help themselves. If you would like to be a financial contributor, donations can be made via Cash App, Linktree, or my Podbean page. Links are in the description box. Every little bit helps. You Get You Right Guru is signing off, y'all. Go forth. Be great. Be filled with bliss. Be armed and empowered with knowledge. You can't change it, so bliss it and release it. The changes you think would make whatever so much better probably wouldn't. Romanticizing a better outcome won't change what happened or what's happening. You got now. Capitalize on that. Carpe diem. In all things, be passionate. See you later.